And I think when we talk about negotiations or saying Ukraine should negotiate, that just breathes oxygen into the Kremlin, who is hoping. Right now, their only hope is to drag this thing out in hopes that all of us will lose the will to continue supporting Ukraine.
The US President Joe Biden has said he would sit down with Russia's President Putin if he pulls out of Ukraine. But Putin says peace talks with Ukraine would not be straightforward without annexations. Well, let's speak now to the former Commander of U.S. Army Forces in Europe, Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chloe.
Let's talk first of all about the general principle of talks. Do you think it is a good thing at this stage in the conflict for Putin to be speaking to various different people? We know that he spoke to the German Chancellor. If he spoke to Biden, do you think that would be a good idea?
Yeah, only if it's within the context of Russia absolutely pulling out of Ukraine, including Crimea, restoring sovereignty of Ukrainian territory, and talks about how they're going to return the over 1 million Ukrainians who have been kidnapped and deported. I think those talks would be important.
Do you think it comes from a sign of strength or weakness that Putin is entertaining this?
They are absolutely getting crushed right now. I mean, they're losing on every front. They're isolated in the world. Their economy is under enormous pressure. And of course, as you know, Europe and the United States just agreed to a cap of around $60 per barrel on Russian oil, which will significantly impact their economy even further. Almost every day, hundreds of Russian soldiers, especially these newly mobilized, untrained soldiers, are being killed as Russia tries to trade bodies for time. And so, yes, I do think that that they are reaching out because they're in such a bad way.
It's interesting that you mentioned the oil cap, because I wanted to ask you about that, because clearly it will affect Russia financially. But we mustn't forget, of course, that Russia, since the start of the war and people have been reluctant to buy Russian oil, they've just increased sales to India and China. They're two nations that are going to spend a huge amount on oil. So it's not hitting Russia in quite the same way as the West would want.
No, I would not agree with that. I think this oil cap, of course, is just now starting, and the Chinese and India will both obviously be quite happy to buy Russian gas at a greatly reduced price. And I mean, if I'm Russia, I would be concerned that India is one of my principal customers when India is working so close with the United States and the West on a variety of issues. The point is that Russia knows that they are becoming increasingly isolated. And these economic measures always take a little bit longer time to have true effect. You are, of course, correct that there still is a place for Russia to sell their oil, but it's not going to be what they were enjoying previously.
There's a warning this morning from the Foreign Secretary in the UK. He's done an interview with a newspaper here, the Daily Telegraph, saying that he is concerned that any negotiations between Vladimir Putin and Ukraine or other parties could be used by Russia to rearm and then launch another attack. Do you see that as a potential concern?
The Foreign Secretary is 100% correct. I mean, the only reason that Russia would seek to negotiate and kind of delay things is in order to rearm, to recover the damage or repair the damage that's been done to their military. They have not yet backed away from any of their long-term objectives. This is exactly what they intend to do, is to try and destroy Ukraine as a state, destroy the idea of Ukraine as a state, and gain control of all of the critical areas, including, of course, Crimea. So we need to be realistic. Of course, there is always going to conflicts always end in some sort of negotiated settlement, but that does not mean that the negotiation would be Ukraine forfeiting or rewarding Russia's annexations or all the damage that it has done. And I think when we talk about negotiations or saying Ukraine should negotiate, that just breathes oxygen into the Kremlin, who is hoping. Right now, their only hope is to drag this thing out in hopes that all of us will lose the will to continue supporting Ukraine.
So, what do you think are the sensible, realistic options on the table?
Well, for the West, the only real option should be to continue supporting Ukraine. The Ukrainians are even here in December as winter is starting to set in. I would much rather be a Ukrainian soldier than a Russian soldier here over the next 3 months. Russian troops are on the back foot. They've got they're occupying versus defending their own country. They're having to import winter kit from North Korea. Poorly led, poorly trained, poorly disciplined. These are all the things that lead to cold weather injuries as well as other morale problems. Ukraine, of course, is not in a perfect position. They have significant challenges with logistics as well. The large variety of equipment that has been donated by multiple countries, including UK and US, that's a unique logistics challenge in and of itself. But you get the sense, they have over 700,000 troops in uniform of regular forces, National Guard forces, or territorial forces, and so on. So they have no manpower problems. And I think Ukrainians know that they have achieved irreversible momentum. I think probably by February, they will be in position to start the decisive phase of this campaign, which is the liberation of Crimea.
Really, by February?
Yeah, that's when they will be in position to start hitting targets on the Crimean Peninsula with HIMARS. Right now, from Kherson, they can hit almost all of the land just north of what's called the Perekop Isthmus, which is that bit of land that connects Crimea to the mainland of Ukraine. So they can already hit that. And there are only two land routes that go into Crimea. One is the obvious or the well-known Kerch Bridge, which has already been damaged. And I think British intelligence says it's going to be a few months before that bridge is fully operational again. And that's assuming it doesn't get attacked again. The second, what we would call a landline of communication, is the so-called land bridge that runs along the northern coast of Sea of Azov from Rostov through Mariupol to Melitopol and into Crimea. That will soon be within HIMARS range, and I think within a couple more weeks. And so once you're able to disrupt or block the two landlines of communication, Crimea starts to look increasingly like a trap.
It's interesting. So it sounds like, yes, there should be conversations with Putin, but actually there should be no compromises because of the strong position that Ukraine is in.
Now, you said it better than I could have. That's exactly right. I mean, not a compromise. I mean, why right now, I don't get the sense that President Zelensky has any intention, nor do any Ukrainians have any intention of settling for anything short of total restoration of Ukrainian sovereignty. I've speak with Ukrainians let's just say frequently, and a guy told me the other day that if President Zelensky said, you know what, I think I'm ready to start negotiating and let's bring this to an end, that there would be a riot in Kyiv outside his office because they've suffered so much. They're not willing to settle for something short of what their war aims are.